Good morning, everyone. Happy Easter. Well, here we are. It's the end of Lent. You know, 21 days ago, when I was here the last time, I asked you to take those real 21 days and do an internal search to see where you are letting go of anger, resentments, frustrations, and more. To take those 21 days and more fully allow the fullness of Source to come into your life and to guide you and to really be a part of your life. So the question is, here we are, Easter Sunday. So how'd you do? The question is, were you able to overcome some of those feelings and emotions and just be more present in the moment with love and understanding for yourself? There is really the basis for the meaning of metaphysical. When we're talking about metaphysical interpretation of anything, and today I want to address that. Easter Sunday is celebrated worldwide as a day marking the resurrection of Jesus Christ, an event that signifies the triumph of life over death. And however, the metaphysical interpretation of Easter Sunday actually offers a viewpoint that transcends the literal reason and enters the realm of spiritual awakening, spiritual transformation, rebirth. Metaphysics is about the nature of reality beyond the physical and looks beyond the historical narrative of Jesus' resurrection to explore symbolic meanings and spiritual reasons. First of all, what is meant by metaphysical in the context of Easter Sunday? Metaphysical refers to the exploration of spiritual realities and truth that go beyond this physical world. The resurrection of Jesus in its metaphysical sense represents the ultimate spiritual awakening, a shift from a state of limitation, which would be physical death, to a state of divine consciousness and immortality, which is spiritual resurrection. So, did the resurrection occur? Yes. There are so many records of that in the Bible, other writings that go back to biblical times and beyond. But Charles Fillmore taught that the resurrection of Jesus for each and every one of us represents the awakening of the Christ consciousness within each and every one of us, each individual. And according to Fillmore, the Bible contains both literal and symbolic truths. In his metaphysical interpretation, Easter Sunday symbolizes the awakening of our own spiritual identity. And in his writings, Fillmore consistently emphasized the idea that the resurrection is not limited to Jesus alone, but is a universal experience that every one of us can have. To Fillmore, the resurrection signifies the rising of our spiritual consciousness from, as he states, the deadness of materialism, ego, and the limitation to the eternal life of divine potential. So Charles's writings that focus on Easter, they focus on the importance of mental and spiritual rebirth, stating that resurrection is not merely an event in history, but a transformative process within everyone. Easter Sunday for Fillmore is a call to rise above the limitations of the physical world and to embrace the true nature of our own divine self. In his book, The 12 Powers of Man, Fillmore explored the 12 powers within everyone, one of which is the power of life, signified by resurrection. And Fillmore suggested that by aligning with our higher spiritual nature, we can experience the resurrection of our own consciousness and a profound sense of inner transformation. So this aligns with the idea that Easter is not just about celebrating an historical event, but about acknowledging the potential for resurrection in our own lives. He taught about the resurrection that emphasizes the importance of inner transformation and the recognition of Christ consciousness within each person. That the resurrection is not a singular event less limited to Jesus at one particular time, but that it's an ongoing process of spiritual rebirth that occurs within all individuals. So as we celebrate Easter today, we might want to look at how much we individually have overcome our own ego and our own attachment to material consciousness. Every one of us has the potential to experience a resurrection by arising above the duality of material existence and awakening to the divine truth of their being. You know, each time I spoke during the time of Lent prior to today, I have suggested that we take time each day to commune with Source, to really sit down and put our whole attention on God itself in our lives, and to make time for that connection and to look at how we are living our own lives. Where do we get angry, upset, irritated, all of that, and to see where we might be able to let some of that go. So instead of blaming others for our circumstances, where could we put more faith in Source to do right things for us? Easter is a time to reflect on our spiritual journey and to recognize the importance of aligning our thoughts, actions, and feelings with divine love and purpose. The Christ consciousness represents an inner state of peace, love, spiritual enlightenment. So Easter Sunday then becomes an opportunity to connect with this higher consciousness, to awaken from the death of our ego-based thinking and to embrace the eternal truth of divine love and reality. Easter represents the revelation of the divine within our human experience. The resurrection of Jesus can symbolize the ultimate realization of our humanity's potential to express divine qualities. Easter is a metaphor for the spiritual awakening of everyone. The resurrection is a symbol of the realization that each person is an expression of the divine. Every individual can experience a resurrection in their own life by awakening to their innate spiritual power and potential. Easter is not just a day to commemorate a historical event, but an opportunity for individuals to recognize and express the divine presence within themselves. You know, metaphysicians all over state that our thoughts shape our reality. So by consciously aligning our thoughts with spiritual truth, we can experience a personal resurrection, rising up from the death of limitation to a life of abundance, health, and spiritual enlightenment. Easter Sunday is a reminder that resurrection is a continual process of spiritual evolution and a call to live more fully in alignment with divine principles. The resurrection really is an inner journey toward mastering the awareness of our divine nature. The resurrection is not only about overcoming death, but also about transcending the ego and awakening to the truth of our own self. So the concept of resurrection is intricately tied to forgiveness, to love, to the expansion of consciousness. And each one of us can experience a resurrection by letting go of limiting beliefs and attachments and fears. Resurrection, in this sense, is the ultimate state of liberation from our false self, is what Fillmore calls it, which is based on separation and the illusion of the ego. Easter is a reminder that the divine spark of life is eternal and that death, in the spiritual sense, is an illusion. By embracing love and forgiveness and the awareness of our true nature, everyone can experience a resurrection, a return to the full awareness of their divine essence. So the metaphysical resurrection transcends the historical narrative of Easter. It's about universal potential for transformation and spiritual awakening. The resurrection is a mental and spiritual awakening and represents an inner transformation and the alignment with Christ consciousness. It's the realization of divine potential and a path to awakening to the divine truth within. This can actually invite us to view Easter as a reminder of our own capacity for spiritual growth, transformation, and awakening. Easter then is not just a celebration of a past event, but a call to each of us to experience our own resurrection, to rise above the limitations of the physical world, and to embrace their divine nature. So in this light, Easter Sunday becomes a sacred invitation to awaken to the fullness of our own spiritual identity and to live in alignment with divine truth, love, and wisdom. So on this Easter morning, as we gather in the light of a great everlasting truth, that truth is life cannot be buried. Spirit cannot be sealed in a tomb. And the divine life placed within each one of us cannot be destroyed. Easter is not merely a remembrance of a single event long ago. It's the living proclamation that the Christ life rises repeatedly in the consciousness of every one of us. The stone that was rolled before the tomb actually symbolizes every belief that life is limited, that good can be defeated, or that God's power can be shut away from the human heart. And yet the message of Easter is that no stone is heavy enough to imprison spirit. The divine life presses us onward, upward, and always seeking expression. Each one of us carries within us the seed of the Christ, and this indwelling presence is not distant or reserved for the saints of old. It's the very life of God breathing through our thoughts, our hopes, and our capacity to love. When we awaken to this truth, the tomb of fear and doubt is opened, and the radiant light of Spirit pours forth. Many people search for resurrection as an event, yet resurrection is a process of consciousness. It occurs whenever we rise above resentments into forgiveness, above an inner weakness we feel into strength, above limitation into the knowledge of our divine inheritance. Every loving thought is a small Easter resurrection. Every victory of faith over doubt is a rolling away of the stone. Every time we move from a limiting thought to an expansive one, from a judgmental thought to a compassionate one, from a self-degrading thought to a thought of love for ourselves and others, we have had a resurrection into a greater consciousness. Consider the garden in which the resurrection was first recognized. A garden is a place of growth, quiet work, patient transformation. In the same way, the soul of humanity is a garden tended by the divine love. Seeds planted in faith may lie hidden for a season, but the power of life within them ensures their awakening. When we hold such thoughts in consciousness, we discover that Easter is not confined to a single morning of the year. It becomes a daily experience. Spirit continually lifts us into new life, new hope, new expression. So go forth from this day with the courage and joy of living. Know that the same divine power that rolled away the stone works within you. The Christ rises in your mind, your heart, and your life. And as it rises in you, it blesses the world. This is the eternal Easter, the triumph of life, the victory of spirit, the awakening of the Christ within every soul. So I'm going to ask you to let this Easter be more than a memory. Let it be an awakening with every single one of us. So I'm going to just ask you to close your eyes and just take in these words. The life of God is rising in me now. The Christ light within me cannot be buried. I rise in faith, in love, and in spiritual understanding. And so it is. So thank you for joining with me on this beautiful Easter Sunday. May your resurrections continue over and over and over again, every day, every moment for the rest of your life. And so it is. God bless.